You're watching Toronto Sports Rush on the Bet Rivers Network.
It's McGuire Mondays. And Pierre, I like a lot of things about you. But one of the greatest attributes you have is you are not always on time. You're always early.
That's true. I learned that from a great football coach a long time ago by the name of Tony Karsich at Burn Catholic High School. Always be 10 minutes early.
So I was getting picked up by a buddy the other day, and we said 9 a.m. Showed up at 9:15, and I just looked at him. I said, "What time is it?" He said, I'm like, "But what time is it?" I don't think he's going to do that again.
There's a great one from the Detroit Red Wings back in the day when they had Dominic Hasek and Scotty Bowman was coaching them, and Hasek was getting bombarded by the media, so the bus was supposed to leave, let's say, at 10 o'clock, and it left at 10:05, and all the guys were giving it to Scotty from the back of the bus, and Scotty stood up and said really loudly, "Worth the wait."
My buddy played for the Belleville Bulls when Richard Park was there. He said sometimes Richard Park would show up for the bus 45 minutes late and no one would say anything. And I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, he had his own rules.
Yeah, sometimes there are different rules for different players. There's no question, Dan. No question about it.
Pierre, of all the players that you have worked with, that you have coached, who was the guy who showed up the earliest for game day or for practices? Was there anyone that showed up like 7 hours early?
Paul Coffey. Paul Coffey was the earliest all the time. It was amazing. He would be in the dressing room probably around 2:30 for a 7 o'clock or a 7:30 game, and he'd be taping his sticks. He'd untape his sticks. He'd be drinking coffee. He'd be chewing gum. He'd be talking to the trainers. He'd be working out, getting himself loose for the game. Paul was addicted to being at the rink. He was amazing that way.
See, the break in the Stanley Cup Final gives us time to talk. We gotta do something. I know it's long travel, but the juice was lost in the build-up to the Cup Final, and I have friends who've watched every second of the Oilers, and they're like, I just can't get into. Is there any way to keep the juice with also being cognizant of the fact that these guys have been battling this long?
There never should have been that big a break after the end of the Eastern Conference and Western Conference final. I think we had 6 or 7 days off, and there was no need for that. I've been part of the finals twice as a coach, and, you get right into it. You keep the momentum going. The fans are into it. The television people are into it. Now it's just become this long, drawn-out slog. I think there is atrophy. I think there's fatigue from the fans. There's no question. Has the quality of play been good? It's been outstanding. Both teams are to be commended. But the truth of the matter is this has gone on far too long.
Yeah, the play has been tremendous. We thought it was going to be another classic Oilers comeback last game, but that did not occur. And now the Oilers are left with a dilemma. Do you go with Pickard? Do you go with Skinner? And as of us speaking right now, that still has not been decided, correct?
Correct. As far as I know, where this is Monday morning, Game 6 is on Tuesday night at 8 o'clock. I don't think you're going to find out anything probably until the morning skate on Tuesday. That being said, Dan, the one thing that really stands out about both these guys, Calvin Pickard and Stuart Skinner, they're not meek guys. They're tough guys. They're mentally tough guys. They're physically tough guys. I don't think one guy will take it wrong one way or the other. So I think that's something to pay attention to, as we go along. But quite frankly, I look at it and I say, these are elite athletes. Are they elite goaltenders? No, I don't think they are. But they're elite athletes and they're mentally tough. Whomever they decide to go with, I think you're going to get a good game from them. I just don't know how much Edmonton's got left, Dan. As a team, I just don't know how much they have left.
Staying with the goalie situation, have you ever been involved where they left it up to the goalies? Because I don't think you would speak or find a professional who would say, nah, let him start.
Yeah, no, I've never heard of anything like that. Now I will say this. We had Tommy Barrasso, who's obviously a Hall of Fame goaltender and the two-time Stanley Cup winner and the President's Trophy winner. And Tommy, so many different awards, team and individual, that he's been part of. Tommy always wanted to play. Dan, he always wanted to play. He didn't want anybody touching that crease except for him. So I've worked with a lot of different guys, Sean Burke, Mario Gosselin, Frank Pietrangelo, Kenny Reggett, lots of different goalies, Jeff Reese. They all want the crease. Every single one of them, they want to be the guy that carries the ball.
Tommy Barrasso, how would you describe him? Because I heard him described as grumpy. Would you describe him as eccentric? How would you describe him?
Unique. Tommy's unique in that he's an amazingly intense man. He took a lot of things personally in terms of athletically. He always was told, you can't do this, you can't do that. And Tommy would always find a way to prove people wrong. He always wanted to be the best guy out there. He was amazingly competitive, and he wasn't afraid to have strong opinions. So very unique at that stage of the National Hockey League when you had a player that was so outspoken and so sure of his beliefs, whether it was about goaltending, politics, business, cars, you name it. Tommy had an opinion, and I respect people like that.
Game 6, obviously must win. I shouldn't say obviously because I was taught that. One of our old bosses, Mark Milliere, I said that on a show once, and he pulled me aside. He goes, Dan, if it's so obvious, why are you here? If everyone knows it, why are you here? And I never said it again. I never said it again.
Well, Milliere was a heck of a boss, as you know. He was a stickler for detail, and one of the things I really admired about Mark, a lot like Tommy Barrasso, Mark had an opinion. He was strong in his belief, and he let you know it, and he definitely let you know it.
So it's a must-win for the Oilers. What is said in that room? Does anything even need to be said? Or are they just going to batten down the X's and O's and try to fix a few things?
I don't think much has to be said. I think they all know they have to play for one another and help each other out. You got to look across the room at the guy across the room from you. You got to look to the guy to your right, to the left, and know you're playing with them and for them. They've obviously experienced some disappointment. Whenever you lose games on home ice in the Stanley Cup playoffs, whether it's the final or the first round, it doesn't matter. You lose on home ice. It's a painful pill to swallow. That was a tough loss on Saturday night in Game 5. You know it, I know it, and the Edmonton Oilers fans know it, and the players know it. I think the biggest thing they got to identify is how they're going to attack Bobrovsky. How are they going to create more scoring opportunities so they put some duress on the Florida Panther defense? How are they going to do and create situations where they force Florida to defend more and for longer periods of time than attack? If they can figure out that, then maybe they got a chance to force a Game 7. If they can't, I think they're going down in 6.
The old adage in hockey is always you got to lose before you win, but it's got to be in the Oilers' brains now saying we've lost. We just want to win now. How do we do that? Yeah. Are they questioning themselves if they haven't?
I don't think so. I think when you look at a guy like McDavid or you look at a guy like Draisaitl or even a Corey Perry, players that have been around, Matthias Ekholm played in the final back when he was in Nashville in 2017. Guys have a lot of experience. They understand what it takes. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. It's not meant to be. I remember once having this conversation with Scotty Bowman. We were walking from the hotel to the rink in Minnesota. It was in Bloomington back then. It wasn't in St. Paul where the North Stars played, and we were walking over for Game 6. We ended up winning Game 6 8-0. And what I remember the most walking with Scotty and the late Badger Bob Johnson was how focused they were as leaders of our group, number one, and number two, how I would never want to experience the pain of getting that far and losing. To myself, I'm saying that. And after we won, I said to Scotty, I can't even imagine what it's like to go this far and lose. He said, my first 3 times to the Cup Final in St. Louis, we lost every time. He goes, you find out fast how painful it is. And so I think probably Edmonton's going through a little of that right now, Dan, is what you're talking about.
And it's going to be in their heads for Game 6. We can't fall behind early. We can't fall behind early. And if it happens, man, they're going to be inside their own heads.
I love what you just said. The start matters a lot for both teams. But in particular, if you look at Edmonton, if they do fall behind, that breaks their game plan right away. And then they start to freelance. And they're not a team that can afford to freelance against Florida. That's such a structured team, especially with their forecheck. If they start to freelance on the Edmonton side of things because they fall behind, this has a potential to get pretty nasty. You want to keep the game as tight as you can. So whether you have a 1-goal lead or a 1-goal deficit, if it expands and you get out of your rhythm, especially if you're losing, if you're Edmonton, that's a problem.
The Oilers have been successful using all their lines this postseason. Do we see a shorter bench in Game 6?
I think you will. The one thing I'd say is, and I said this before Game 5, if you go look at what happened in Game 4 in Florida when Edmonton won, and they obviously came from behind to win, what stood out to me was the amount of minutes certain guys were getting. Connor McDavid played over 30 minutes. The defense, they only played Troy Stetcher 4 minutes and 18 seconds. So they were running a lot of guys with a lot of minutes, and I didn't think they'd have a lot left for Game 5. I said that, and that held true because it was quick transition from Thursday to Saturday. There was only one day off. Now you have the 2 days off. I think the bench will get shortened. I agree with you, but they got to make something of it, and if they don't, then it won't matter.
And we can't talk about this series without talking about Brad Marchand and brilliance by the Panthers getting him. Pure and utter brilliance that he is in that lineup and playing to the level that he is. Because maybe he's not surprised, but everything he does now, we're like, what is happening? He has turned back the clock.
So well said. And when you think about it, when he was in Boston, he usually played with Patrice Bergeron and David Pastrnak for long periods of time when he was on top of his game offensively. And when he was an elite penalty killer, I spent a lot of time, obviously, with Bergeron playing. Here's the thing, Dan. He's gone from being a first-line player in Boston, and you should never number your lines, but I will in this reference, to a third-line player in Florida. And when he plays with Lundell and Luostarinen, he creates unbelievable opportunities because the matchups are favorable to him. If he were playing up higher in the lineup, maybe those matchups would not be as favorable for him. So I think it's been tremendous by the management team led by Billy Zito in Florida. An outstanding job of coaching by Paul Maurice and his staff, Jamie Compon and Tuomo Ruutu and Sylvain Lefebvre. They've identified players and put them into unbelievable roles. You can look at Marchand, you can look at Seth Jones, you can look at Aaron Ekblad, Gustav Forsling. Look at all the roles that have been created for that team. Think about the fourth line that they have there with A.J. Greer and Tomas Nosek and Jonah Gadjevich. It's unbelievable, Dan, what they've done. I love what you said about the management and how they put this team together. And Marchand's a very good example of that.
And that room right now, going into this Game 6, it's not a, guys, we got nothing to lose. It's a quiet confidence that room has been there. They've done this, and they know the task at hand. So that takes away any doubt.
Yeah. Well said again. And Dan, you know this because you've been around so much of it. You don't force a Game 6 at home to say, oh, yeah, well, we always have the eraser. We can go back for Game 7 in their building. You want to close it down. You don't want to utilize that eraser. You don't want that safety net of a Game 7. You want to end it in Game 6. And so you know, if you're Edmonton in particular, you're getting the very best game that Florida has. You're going to get their very best game. Now, you got to measure up to that if you're Edmonton, but I don't expect Florida not to have an A game in Game 6. I expect them to have a big-time A game.
My good friend Wasey Rabbit, he is enthralled, enamored with this Panthers team because he's from Calgary, so he despises the Oilers. And after each Panthers win, he says, oh, you want to play run and gun? We can do that. You want to play mucky? Oh, we can do that. They're chameleons.
Yeah. So Paul Maurice is the ace chameleon. Paul Maurice is witty, he's intelligent, he's orchestrated, and he's really organized. But I've said this to a lot of people. The Florida Panthers have taken on the persona of Paul Maurice. Paul Maurice says all these nice, flowery things in his press conferences. He's a wolf in sheep's clothing. He loves nasty hockey, and he's done a great job orchestrating nasty hockey for the Florida Panthers. I say that with total respect and reverence. I think the guy's done a fantastic job. And for so long, everybody saw Paul Maurice as this nice, kind, gentleman. He is. But as a coach, he's a nasty piece of business. And he gets his players to play that way. And they have played to the T's perfectly in terms of the persona that Paul Maurice wants them to play with.
We're only shown what the broadcast shows us, but we're showing a lot of high sticks and cross checks that the Oilers have been delivered upon them, yep. And the Panthers not getting called. Do you think that tape, or I shouldn't say, do you think, has that tape been delivered to the officiating crew? Say, hey, guys, watch out for this, just so you know, because this is all over the broadcast. Have an eye for this.
All series long, there's a series supervisor or a series manager, whatever you would like to call that person. And there's always lobbying that goes on between games. And when there's an extra day for the video people to go to work, they can present more of a case. So I think you're on to something there too, Dan.
So wait, is that tape delivered to the officiating supervisor?
No, the series manager will come in and say, okay, here's what we're seeing. What are you seeing? And they'll do it to both sides. It's not favoring one side or the other. And they'll talk about different trends that are occurring in a series. One of the things that stood out to me, Dan, at the start of the playoffs, forget the Stanley Cup Final, the amount of vicious cross-checking that was being allowed by the officials. Yes. It was, I've never, like in 35 years in the league, Dan, I've never seen so much violent, vicious cross-checking to the face and to the head area. And there weren't any calls happening. None. And I think as the playoffs have gone on, the league realized, especially the officiating people, that's not good. So the up-high cross-check is being called. The down-low cross-check is not being called as much.
The kidney killer.
Yeah, the kidney killer. That's a good way to describe it. A lot of guys back in the day, all those guys, Thomas Holmstrom and Johan Franzen and Ryan Smith and all Patrick Hornquist, think about all those guys who used to jam the slot, looking for the tips and the rebound opportunities. Those guys paid a huge physical toll to go in there. It's not nearly as vicious now as it was then, I can tell you that.
Oh, yeah. Pierre, we appreciate this. We've got to wait till Tuesday for Game 6. In the meantime, we get to watch the Pacers and Thunder in their Game 5 with that series tied at 2 apiece. A lot of Canadian content there. I know you'll be watching. Pierre, we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it.
Thanks for watching Toronto Sports Rush on the Bet Rivers Network.